There's no such thing as a small disaster. So when you call 1-800-WATER-DAMAGE of North Dakota, we come prepared to restore your life back to normal. From burst pipes to unexpected mold discoveries or fire damage, when things couldn't be worse, we come to you with our best. With empathy, local expertise, and a truck full of seriously powerful equipment. 1-800-WATER-DAMAGE of North Dakota. Restoring what matters most. 701-670-2022.
Hello and welcome to this Valley News Now weather update brought to you by 1-800-WATER-DAMAGE of North Dakota. I'm meteorologist Lisa Green, and we're going to talk 2025. We're going to look back briefly. It's not going to be a comprehensive look back. We're going to look back into the year that was. It was quite a wild weather year. We had what felt like systems and experiences that were out of season during the season that they fell in. Some big warm-ups and cool downs, and we also saw, a recovery from drought as well as we worked our way through the season. So that was a good thing through the year last year. So we're going to talk about 2025, and then we're going to get into the look ahead into the forecast and outlook for these early days and early months of 2026. And we can access all of this on our website as well. Meteorologist Joseph Williams just did an update on that ran in our newscast and is available on our website. I'll go over it here as well, but you can always go back and look at that. And let's get into the numbers here as we are going to be once again looking back at 2025. So here's a look. We are going to start with the big number, 80. That was the big number of 2025. That's the number of tornadoes that have so far been counted from this season. That is a state record. It beat the previous tornado record of 61. So there was no way that we weren't going to make this record, essentially. And some big outbreaks again for the state was June 20th. We had 23 tornadoes, and September 14th. That affected more parts of central and western North Dakota. We had 20 tornadoes there. We also had an outbreak, I believe it was, I'd have to go back and look now. I wish I had that in front of me. But it was in the early morning hours. I want to say it was August 8th. But that happened, especially in Grand Forks County, was impacted by that as well. I think it was about a dozen, maybe a baker's dozen of tornadoes that hit that morning. And then, of course, adding up more throughout the season in between that occurred as well, including these twin tornadoes in the background of our graphic here. So that was definitely the big thing that a lot of us are going to remember. We just did a weather special wrapping up that day, June 20th, where we had the 23 tornadoes. It wasn't just tornadoes on June 20th. We also talked about the derecho that went through the state and caused a lot of wind damage in southeastern North Dakota in the wake of that derecho too. And then, of course, as this traveled into Minnesota, we had that derecho affect places in and around Bemidji, where we saw the the derecho produce an estimated 120 mile per hour wind gusts and the Bemidji blowdown that we talked about here. So certainly big outbreaks that we experienced. And I do want to show you here, I'm going to pull up our website for you. If you search weather wrap, here's our website. If you search weather wrap on our website, if you missed that special show that we had on December 26th, you can go to our website, search weather wrap, and it's segmented into parts. So you can see here we've got the part 1, and then it's a little out of order on the site, but part 2, and all the way through part 4. And we talk about anything from what happened in Enderlin. My segment of it was on Bemidji and what happened in northwest Minnesota with the derecho and the intense straight line winds. We also get into, in part 3 here, we get into meteorologist Summer Schnellbach gets into the the rating of the Enderlin tornado that ended up being an EF5, the first in more than a decade across the country. So a really interesting series with a lot of interesting recaps and new information, of course, with the Enderlin tornado being rated an EF5. So please take some time to go back and look at that if you're interested in looking back on that night specifically of the June 20th and 21st of that outbreak. That was by and large the biggest outbreak here in the upper Midwest. Not only did we see an incredible amount of tornadoes, but we also again experienced the what was likely the most significant weather event in Minnesota with the Bemidji blowdown and the millions of trees that were taken down and hundreds of homes and structures that were damaged. So again, that's the big number 80 for this last year. Of course, we had other events going on, other weather conditions and situations. So we'll talk a little bit about how the year shaped up here as I move ahead in our graphics here. So let's talk about Fargo first off. Just a reminder, we don't mean to ignore other communities around the valley. We just don't have that many climate sites where climate information and data has been recorded and kept for decades or even hundreds of years, more than 100 years in the case of Fargo and Grand Forks. And so, we can only share what we have. So we're sharing Fargo. We'll share a little bit of Grand Forks too here. But just keep in mind, this applies to everybody in the valley, the ups and downs and the wild swings. It might have been slightly different for your community, but it gives you an idea of what we experienced here throughout the Red River Valley. Okay, let's get back to Fargo. This is climate data from the airport from 2025. Our hottest day, and I want to thank meteorologist Summer Shellbach again here because she compiled this data for this presentation. So thanks for putting in all the hard work and getting the stats on that. But hottest days here were 3 tied for the hottest days in Fargo. 95 degrees was our hottest day in Fargo on May 11th, 12th, and on the 4th of July. But one thing to note, our hottest days, our 90-degree days, 2 of them were in May. And in fact, May ended up being the month of this last year where we had the most 90-degree days. It was intensely hot in May. We were pretty dry, and so we saw temperatures really surge in May. And in addition to that, we saw 4 days in May of 90-degree temperatures. No other month in the year of 2025 did we see that. So again, it was a springtime heat wave that hit us in May. And coldest mornings, we had 23 below both in January and in February, 2 mornings that got to 23 below. So we did have some cold weather too. And our snowiest day, also kind of an anomaly, not completely, but kind of, given it was April 2nd. So springtime, we had our hottest temperatures in the springtime. We also had our snowiest day in the springtime when we reached 4.9 inches of snow in Fargo. And one thing to note about that is that, we oftentimes we'll see a spring snow event. That's not unusual for us here. And even into April, we can have some heavy snows. And it's actually in the spring when we start warming up and we start getting more moisture in the atmosphere that we have the capability of having some of our biggest snows. Both the months leading into the heart of winter and then the months leading out of the heart of winter, we tend to have some of our heaviest snowfall events. Not always the case, but it's the general tendency. So not a huge surprise, again, that we saw 4.9 inches of snow in April. But just, again, talking about springtime was the season where we had some wild weather going on from snow to 90-degree days. Our rainiest day was in August in Fargo with more than 1.5 inches of rain and total liquid moisture, total precipitation essentially, including meltdown from snow, was 20.90. Average is close to 24 inches. So we were about 3 inches below average. Still overall, we did really improve drought conditions around the region as we worked our way through 2025, even being slightly below average in Fargo. So let's look back to Grand Forks as well, our year in review there. We have 2 climate sites, interestingly enough, in Grand Forks. one in town at the Grand Forks National Weather Service office, and then at the airport as well. And when we show you our current information, when we show you our current data, we're showing you information from the airport. And that's where a lot of our temperatures and that kind of data comes in. But we also like to check in with the National Weather Service office. They have the oldest location, so the records go farther back there. So we try to show you both when we're looking at climate, and especially when we're talking about extremes in the valley. So we kind of go back and forth between these places depending on the extreme. So hottest day was actually registered at the airport, AP means airport, on May 11th, and we got to 99 that day. So same day we got to 95 in Fargo, we got to 99 at the airport in Grand Forks. Coldest morning, 25 below on January 20th at the National Weather Service office. Most snowfall actually happened not too long ago. 6.3 inches of snow on December 9th. We know, and oh, by the way, I did go back and look really quickly. It was August 8th that we had that tornado outbreak in the Grand Forks County area. It looks like we had about a dozen tornadoes associated with that outbreak. So I just wanted to go back and make sure that we confirmed that, as I was telling you. There's a lot of information here. It's always kind of hard to make sure we get all the dates right, but August 8th was correct. So anyway, going back to the December 9th event, that was the event earlier in December and earlier in the season where we saw the heavy snow, and Grand Forks at the National Weather Service office reported 6.3 inches of snow there from this event. And that caused lots of travel issues yet again. And just talking about some of the storm reports there, total Grand Forks had 11 inches of snow. So a reminder, snowiest day, that's the 24-hour period of that date. So oftentimes we get snow events that happen. They don't just start at midnight and end at midnight. They carry on into the next day. So snow totals aren't always going to necessarily match up with the heaviest snowfall for a specific date. So for Grand Forks, we had about 11 inches of snow reported there with that event. But during that 24-hour period is when we saw the the 11 inches, the 6.3 inches of snow. We'll pull the graphic back up that you see here on our graphic. So just a little explanation there here for the Grand Forks area. So yeah, that was one of our heaviest reports. We also had a report with that storm. It looks like it's hard to tell exactly where the location was on the map I'm looking at, but it was about 11 inches of snow. I can pull this up for you so you can see it for yourself. This is from the National Weather Service. They posted this, they shared this, and you can see that 11-inch report in Grand Forks and also 11 inches southeastern parts of Becker, northwestern Wadena, up toward Park Rapids area. That were some of the heavier areas of snow in that event. So heaviest snowfall in 2025 for Grand Forks came in the end of the year. And rainiest day lining up in April yet again for Grand Forks. So again, a very active April between the snow that we saw in Fargo, the heaviest snowfall, and then for the rainiest day, April, for Grand Forks. Total precip at the National Weather Service office, 18.99, so about 19 inches of liquid precipitation, and that includes melt from snow, and that is running about about 4 inches below average there. So again, a little bit below average on our rainfall and precip amounts, but we did see improvement as far as the drought is concerned over the course of the year of 2025. And in fact, I'm going to pull up our drought monitor so we can take a look at where we stand right now. Haven't looked in a while as we've moved out of the growing season, but always a good idea to keep an eye on this. This is the drought monitor page. And you can see that here in the upper Midwest and in the northern plains, or the high plains is how they label the Dakotas, and then Midwest is including Minnesota. So our viewing area is kind of broken up into those segments. You can see that in Minnesota, we do have some areas that are more under drought, a moderate drought over toward places like Park Rapids and Bemidji and down into Wadena County and parts of the Becker County area too. We'll just click all the way through here and you can see that. So again, a little bit of drought, but not as extreme as it was. Okay, back to the Grand Forks year in review. So Grand Forks again had some hot days, but we certainly saw more hot days in our May timeframe than we did for some of our months when we typically see the hottest temperatures in the summertime. Okay, so let's move back to Fargo. This graphic, there's a lot of information on it, but I think it's really useful and it helps to tell the story here. Thanks again to Summer for creating this. We've got the areas in each column indicating a month. So, of course, January is here, February is here, March. And so each column is a month, and then this is the average temperatures. So we're looking at the numbers down here, the deviation from average. So for example, January, we were very close to average for the month for average temperatures, and that was at just under average, so 0.3 degrees below average there. And heading into February, goodness, it was cold. Okay, so if you remember, and we're going to get into La Nina here pretty soon. We're going to talk more about that. But if you remember, as we were heading into the winter last year, I was doing a lot of talk about La Nina taking over and how, especially during weak La Nina events, we oftentimes see some very warm months in the fall leading up to the winter time, and then a switch flips, and then suddenly we are cold. And that is something we saw that happen last winter season, leading into 2025. So it was a very warm fall. And then you can see behind me here, we got cold in January, classically cold, typically cold, but we really saw the bottom drop out as we got into February. And so February ended up being 5 degrees below average from the average of the month. So that tells you just how cold it was, because February is already a cold month. So it was frigid. But look at this difference that happened here. We went from being at the bottom of the graph, well below average in February, and then March, suddenly we were well above average. We were 5.6 degrees above average. So we were doing these wild temperature swings heading into springtime. And then once we got to April, which turned out to be a snowy month for Fargo, or at least one event that was snowy, and for April for a precip as well, we ended up having an interesting month that way, but our average temperature ended up being right around average for the month. So we leveled off. May, with our 90-degree temperatures that we saw, ended up above average. And then we kind of leveled off heading into June, July, and August, right around average for those months. But interestingly enough, August never saw a 90-degree temperature. So we had 4 in May in Fargo and none in August. Again, adding to that feel that we were getting weather that was kind of out of season, not typical for the season for some of our months and some of our seasons into the year. And then moving back into September, October, November, look how warm we were. We were way above average through those months. Again, heading into fall. And again, I want to stress, we were still in a La Nina, weak La Nina. But conditions that have returned to La Nina in the fall, and it's weak. So again, following that general setup, and this isn't the case every year, we just trend this way historically. We ended up with warm temperatures, and then you see what happened here in December. We ended up going from, I'm doing this backwards, so it's kind of hard, going from very warm in the fall months to getting cold again into December. And if you remember, November, we had some 60-degree temperatures. It was warm. And then suddenly we had that storm at the end of the month, and then we ended up much, much colder heading into the month of December. And we stayed colder in general at average with a 3 below average a number here. So on the whole, the year ended up being a little bit above average, about 1.3 degrees Fahrenheit above average, which, doesn't sound like a lot, but that can make a significant difference over the long period of time. Just the overall trending on a warmer note for Fargo. And in Grand Forks, I wish I would have written this down because I had that information. I'm going to try to look this up really quickly while you guys continue to look at that graphic. If there are any events that stand out to you from the year, I'd love to hear about them. Feel free to comment below some reminders of some of the things we experienced over the course of the year. If I haven't mentioned them, it'd be good to remember what we went through over the springtime into the stormy summer that we had. Of course, June was a very stormy, and obviously the warmth that we ended up with in the end of the year too was quite mild. And sorry guys, I'm just looking up our climate information for Grand Forks. I want to make sure that we have okay, it looks like it's going to take me a little longer than we have time for here, but if you check back, I will share with you how much warmer than average we were in Grand Forks as well. I believe it was significantly warmer than Fargo. I want to say 3 degrees, but that might be too much. So hang on. After this is done, I'll go back and look, and I'll enter that into the comments for you coming up here. So feel free to please check back. And again, feel free to comment what you've seen over the course of the year. I'd love to hear about that. Okay, so let's move on. Let's take a look at the precip amounts. We ended up with a significant amount of precip in April. If you remember right, we talked about how we had our snowiest weather in April in Fargo. We ended up getting a lot of rain too, and that helped to make a huge difference heading into the summertime and the springtime for the growing season, and just helping with the drought as well. And on average, I just want to point out too that these numbers, so these are your graphs to show you whether you're above or below average, and these numbers are your percent of normal. So again, for example, in January, we were 48% of normal. So we were almost half of what we normally would get in January. And for April, we were well above average. So we got not just all of our average precip, but 177% of normal. And then closer to average, or closer to normal, was June. We ended up being close to average, so almost or just over 100% of normal. So that's what those percentages mean. And so for the year, we ended up, again, being slightly below average, but at 87% of average for the year of 2025 in Fargo. So again, that's not as, it is something to note. We want to pay attention to that as we're, making our way toward the seasons that we start worrying about precip, whether it's flood season. Hopefully that's not a problem for us heading into spring, but we'll be watching that. And then, of course, the growing season as well. So, yes, it was an active year, and now we are looking ahead to 2026. Things are looking pretty typical right now as we make our way into the year of 2026. We're also still in a weak La Nina now, so we've seen that come back, and now it is going to influence our weather for a little bit longer before we see that weaken again. So that's the next thing I want to talk about, La Nina. So a reminder of what La Nina is. We're going to take this full screen here. So when we're talking about La Nina, it's basically part of the circulation or the oscillation. That's a climate factor. So this is over more global, and it's over a longer period of time. And El Nino and La Nina are basically the opposites of each other. So when we have a La Nina, it's a little different from El Nino, or opposite of El Nino, a lot different. When instead of getting warmer waters in the eastern Pacific like we see in El Nino, we actually get the warmer waters out to the west. Trade winds, those are the winds that blow out of the east. And again, we have the westerlies here in the temperate climates in the mid-latitudes, but near the equator, we get the trade winds, and those blow east to west. So they, typically are blowing east to west like that. But when they are stronger, they tend to push that warmer water at the surface even more west. So when we get some stronger trade winds, we see that warmer water move on, and that leaves the cooler water below the surface to rise. And so we end up with a colder pool of water in eastern parts of the Pacific. Now, what does that have to do with us here? Well, it influences our weather here. When you've got colder water here, warmer water there, this suppresses storm development, and warmer water helps to feed storm development. Maybe you hear about, us talk when it comes to hurricane season. I know we don't really have to worry about that here in the center of the continent, but it's still something of interest to us because it affects our neighbors to the south and east. But when we talk about hurricanes, we talk about how warm the waters in the Gulf are or over into the Caribbean, and how it is a big factor. It helps to intensify storms when the waters are warmer. It's a feeding factor into those storms. And so in the tropics, having warm water at the surface helps to increase storm activity. And when you get increased storm activity in one spot, that affects the environment elsewhere. And when you get suppressed storm activity in one spot, that affects the environment around it. And it's, of course, air is circulating around the globe all the time. And so that influences our air masses, our jet streams, all of that. So we'll get back to this here. I'm getting into a little bit too much detail probably here. But again, so we're in a La Nina. It's a weak one. But when you have a La Nina, the typical wintertime pattern, it's not always this way, but the typical wintertime pattern is exactly this. We get that northwesterly flow coming in. And so our systems, our weather tends to come from the northwest. And when you get that northwesterly flow, that also means that we are looking out for the potential for colder air, windier conditions too, and sometimes it can lead to more moisture as well. You can see it tends to be more wet on the west coast. That's exactly what we've been seeing here with the atmospheric rivers they've been getting, and some of that moisture from that Pacific jet does feed in, and then we end up with moisture here too. Not always the case. The signal for La Nina is much stronger for temperatures than it is for precip, but it's still a factor, and it's still something that we need to watch. So we are in a weak La Nina. Let's take a look at what we've got going on. Remember I mentioned the colder sea surface temperatures? Well, here's a look at the sea surface temperatures recently, again in our weak La Nina event. I believe this is from December. I'm going to go back because this does zoom in, and we're going to zip ahead again here. The most recent sea surface temperature anomalies. And you can see that we've got some blue on the map here. What does that mean? Well, colder than average temperatures here in this blue, or anomalies, the difference from average. So again, cooler waters than typical in the eastern and central Pacific. And here's Mexico here in Central America, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at. This map isn't viewer friendly for everybody if you're not used to looking at it. So again, we're still in a La Nina at the moment. And here's a look at our temperature trends for El Nino, or ENSO. ENSO means El Nino Southern Oscillation. That's why we're using that term at the top there. So that's the term of the overall pattern, but again, we're in a La Nina part of that. So the black line is where we're at neutral. We consider ourselves to be in an El Nino when our sea surface temperature anomaly, that difference from our average, is at 0.5 Celsius or above. We're definitely not there. Or 0.5 Celsius below the average. And that's where we've been trending here. This black line, that's the observation line. So we've been working our way downward into this weak La Nina situation, just barely into La Nina. So this is where we stand as of this update in December. And these are seasons down here, these letters here. This means November, December, January. The climate is considered, a season is considered in climate to be 3 months. So this particular season, November, December, January, and then the next season, December, January, February, January, February, March. So those are what those letters mean. So it kind of helps you to move forward in time. And so we're kind of right there as of this latest update. And you can see all these different colored graphs. Those are different models that are used to try to predict where the sea surface temperature will go, and that helps us to know what's going to happen with La Nina or El Nino for the coming months. And so you can see there's lots of them. They're not all in agreement, but they're all, as we head into the seasons, trending upward. So by the time we get into the springtime, February, March, April, May, more of our graphs are above neutral, or it's about equal here, above and below. So that signals that we may be transitioning in the next couple of months into neutral status, or maybe even, trending a little bit above neutral here into the months of June, July, and August, so into the summer months. So models are trending us out of La Nina coming up here. So that's something to keep in mind. But for the time being, we are going to stay in that range here over the next few months here as we are slowly working our way out of it. Okay, so after that long explanation, here's a look at the precip and temperature outlooks for the coming months. Behind me is the 1 month precip outlook. We're also going to take a look at the 3-month outlook, so that'll include the months of January, February, and March. So essentially, the rest of our winter months, even though we know we can get snow in April, but the heart of winter. And I just want to remind you that these are outlooks, not forecasts. And the difference is a forecast is what we consider deterministic. We're saying this is what's going to happen. We're looking at, snow at this time, temperature of this range during that time. That's a forecast. An outlook is showing trends. So looking at whether we're more likely to be above average for temperature or precip or below average for temperature or precip. And it gives us an idea of what we might expect, but not necessarily saying this is exactly what's going to happen. So hopefully that clarifies that for you. So let's get back to it. January precip outlook. We want to see anything outside of average, we want to see some color on the map. And you can see some green over here. And that is trending above average out to the west and into Montana. But we're in the gray here in the Red River Valley. So January precip is trending near average here. And our average precip is 0.71 inches in Fargo. And as far as our temperature outlook, you can see where we are. We're in the blue. And that is from the Climate Prediction Center. Again, their thought that we're more likely to be below average for the month of January. Again, that falls in line with La Nina. Our average highs in January are right in the teens. We dip down into 18 and then back up to 19. And then our average lows, pretty low, around 0 here. So we'll be potentially below average. We're more likely to see below average temperatures on the whole than above. And a reminder that average could mean that we're just staying, in the low teens the whole time, or it could mean an average of extremes. We could be very cold and then see a big warm up. So average, take that with a grain of salt, but overall the average comes out to be lower than what is considered typical. Now, our 3-month precip outlook, again, this includes January, February, and March, is trending above average, but not by a lot. It's our average precip for this season for January, February, and March is 2.65. And so we're just barely leaning above average for precip. And then looking at our temperatures, again, you can see the above average temperatures for the southern U.S. and the likelihood of below average temperatures through March is there. And that includes North Dakota, it includes Minnesota, but especially northwest Minnesota. The deeper the color, the greater the likelihood that we'll see below average temperatures. And our averages from January 1st to March 31st, 19 to 45. That's going to look good here as we get more into the winter season. And again, our averages go up for our lows too. So again, looking to trend both either slightly above average for our precip, but not by much. And then temperatures this month and then through the 3-month period trending below average as we're still in that La Nina. It's still influencing our overall weather pattern, which is that northwesterly flow that we continue to see. That's what keeps bringing us these waves of snow moving through the valley that we've had basically time out perfectly every morning until this morning, where things have changed a little bit, but we're still looking out for snow coming up here heading into tonight. So let's talk about the forecast now. So if you have any questions about all of this, I'm happy to answer them. You can comment those. Oh, thank you, Joseph. Joseph just commented that the sea surface temperature is as of December 24th. Thank you. I appreciate that. Joseph put all those graphics together. And again, his presentation is available on our website on valleynewslive.com. And in fact, let me just pull that up for you so I can show it to you so you can go back and watch it. Let's see here. So let's go to our news page because it's going to be up toward the top. Here it is. All you have to do is scroll down a little bit if you're searching right now. It's right here, a look at the Red River Valley winter outlook. So Joseph breaks this down as well. So I was just checking our Facebook page to see if we had any questions so far, and I saw Joseph's comment pop up. So hi, Joseph. Nice to see you. I hope you're enjoying your day off. You should be enjoying your day off, but I appreciate that you're watching. Again, if you have any comments, we'd appreciate hearing from you. If you have anything you want to pass along, whether it's a comment on the year that passed or what we're expecting as we head into more into the month of January and into the year of 2026. So you can see behind me, the sun's trying to come out. We've got sunshine peeking through some clouds there, and we'll pull up this full screen so you can see that sunshine. It's being filtered right now. It is looking quiet for the moment. We did, of course, get a break from the snow this morning, but it was pretty cold for some areas. Grand Forks had a pretty chilly temperature this morning. We had some wind chills that were pretty low as well. And so now we're working our way out of that in Grand Forks. We're at 9 degrees. It's actually warmer in Grand Forks now than it is in Fargo. And we do have a wind chill. It is 2 below, and Fargo's at 6 with a wind chill of 6. So not enough wind to create a wind chill factor for us in Fargo. Just looking at Grand Forks is low. We were down to, looks like 11 below overnight last night. And Jamestown's at 11, and you can see Bemidji also chilly. We're at 1, and we have a wind chill of 14 below. So conditions are looking pretty good as we are working our way through the day today to keep things quiet for the moment. But you can see what's kind of, creeping into the valley, we'll say. More clouds and more blue showing up on our radar map. And in fact, up by Langdon, I am seeing, we'll zoom in a little bit more, seeing a little bit of blue showing up north of Langdon. So might be getting a few flurries, a few flakes there as we're watching for this next wave to move in. So zooming out a little bit, you can see southern Saskatchewan and back over toward Williston, seeing some areas of snow showers. And again, that is working its way from the northwest to the southeast. So that's going to move through the valley here as we continue on through the morning and into the afternoon. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit more and move south. There's some clouds over toward Jamestown, a few flakes, a few flurries as well. So, and that's at least what's showing on the radar. Doesn't necessarily mean it's making its way to the ground just yet, but we're watching out for these scattered areas up here, these scattered areas of snow to drop into the southeast today. And I had already zoomed in on some of these. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to move ahead and move into the forecast. I want to talk about tonight's chance for snow. We also have another system for this weekend that has the potential to bring snow and a little freezing drizzle. So want to watch out for that for this weekend if you're doing some traveling. I know it's Sunday, and so a lot of people coming home from your weekend destinations, or maybe you've been gone for the holidays and you're coming back on Sunday. So we're going to get into that coming up here. So for this morning, just seeing those temperatures trying to climb. They're not moving up much. We're getting into some single digits and some teens. Warmest in the south and west for this afternoon. And then as we take a look at our evening planner, you can see that there are those areas of isolated snow showers starting to dip in. And one thing to note is, some of us might see our warmest temperatures of the day happening before midnight tonight. We've got this south wind kicking in. The wave is more in the north, and so there's some some air feeding into it, and it's coming in out of the south, so it's slightly warming, not a lot, but slightly, as this is dipping its way through, kind of following a similar path line to our other rounds of snow. We could see snow north and south, but Northern Valley is more likely to get the snowflakes. And I would expect anywhere from a dusting, maybe even a lot of us may not see any snow at all. So we could have none, we could have some flurries, we could have a little dusting, up to maybe about an inch up toward Baudette, where we see that snow hang around longer heading into the overnight hours and into the morning for Saturday. So keep that in mind. There might be a light coating of snow if you're hitting the roads tomorrow morning. And temperatures not as cool as today, but not warm either. We're looking at single digits to some teens to start off the day on Saturday. Now I want to take a look at the next couple of days temperature wise. We'll see a high of Saturday in the teens, and the snow showers move on, so it's more mostly cloudy, partly cloudy skies. Sunday, we're looking out for some snow showers and that mix. So you can see some of our communities on Sunday showing that. But temperatures will be a little warmer. It's that warm up that's helping to cause that. And then, we're going to see that potential more likely in the afternoon hours. So I'm going to bring that up here. Again, I'm going to come back to Friday today at 5 p.m. This model's lower resolution, so it's not showing the scattered nature of the snow showers as much as we are seeing in our more high resolution models. But you can see that potential for snow sweeping through tonight, lingering into the Baudette area into tomorrow morning, and then it moves on. So this is noon on Saturday. We're doing just fine. Heading into the evening hours, doing okay. Let's zip ahead. We're going to move through Saturday night into Sunday morning, and then getting into the lunch hour Sunday about 12:30. That's when we're starting to see some color on the map. And this is when we're watching for that next chance for precip as this next system moves in. And with that warmer air, there is that potential that we could see what you're seeing on this map here, that possibility for freezing rain. That's what this legend is showing you, and you can see in parts of the valley. This model is showing it around 6 o'clock on Sunday evening between Grand Forks and Fargo. It may not exactly happen this way, but somewhere in the valley has the potential of seeing some freezing rain. There's some snow mixed in there as well, continuing through the afternoon into the evening on Sunday and into the late night hours. I paused the clock here at 11, but that will continue into overnight potentially before we get into Monday morning. And here's a look at that ice potential map. Again, I wouldn't hang your hat on the location as much as I would pay attention to the fact that we're even seeing that ice potential for Sunday and the magnitude of it too. Most areas, if we see ice, it's going to be under 1/10 of an inch. There might be a couple of pockets here in this kind of medium color pink that we get into that 1/10 of an inch or perhaps a little bit more range. So again, watching that closely for Sunday for potential impacts for holiday travelers or weekend travelers coming up for Sunday. Right now, it does look more like Sunday afternoon, but again, if you have to drive, I would check in on Saturday night with meteorologist Joseph Williams on that latest forecast. And tonight, too, we'll have an update on that as well. And then, again, on Sunday, you can always check the VNN weather app for the latest radar as you go about your day on Sunday. So, again, not done with winter, not by a long shot here in the valley as we continue on into 2026. But we do have some milder temperatures to come. So let's take a look at that in our extended planner. Today, again, late showers, snow showers north, and then extending into early Saturday morning before that moves on. Sunday does look milder, but it comes with that mix potential. And then as we move into next week, you can see 20s to 30, right in that mid 20 to 30 degree range. I've been watching for a storm system that's been showing up from time to time, more consistently on one long range model than another, and that is looking less likely. So I'm happy to say that for those who want to avoid a major storm system. That doesn't mean that we're out of the woods necessarily. Things might change again. And actually, I just pulled up the most recent model run, and it is bringing it back. So I take all of that back. The most recent model run just came out here. And it looks like right now more of a track over toward Minneapolis, Twin Cities, central Minnesota, but some of that snow and wind does move into some of our, west central Minnesota, Lakes Country counties. So something to keep in mind that, it's been fluctuating. We've been seeing some changes in that forecast model. And the other thing I do want to mention too is that not all of our long range models are showing that either. So it's just one, and it's been going back and forth. So we're not first alerting you to that yet, but just kind of giving you that first little inkling, that first little nudge that that might be our next storm system to watch here heading into around that Friday time frame of next week. So but temperatures look really mild, look really good heading into that time frame here. You can see most of the days during the work week are in the mid-20s, which is great to get out and enjoy the weather and enjoy winter sports. We've been talking about that. Sometimes it's just too cold, or it feels like it for me, to be out in that weather when it's only 5 degrees or so. But if we're in that 20-degree range, that feels pretty good if you got enough layers on and you can get out and enjoy the beauty of winter time as well. Okay, I'm just checking to see if we've got any more questions, any more comments. Not seeing any more. Did hear from one person who's happy to see this report. Glad that you're enjoying that. And if you have any more questions, feel free to comment those. We'll have another update coming up this afternoon from our weather team, and we'll continue to be watching for any winter weather coming our way in the coming days. And again, I'll comment on this post on Facebook about what that temperature difference was, and it ended up being for Grand Forks for the year of 2025, since I didn't have that readily available with me here in this particular studio I'm in. So in the meantime, I hope you're having, again, a great 2026. It's starting off a little cold, but we've seen worse, and we've got some milder days ahead too. Just remember to watch out for that chance for some snow showers tonight. And again, heading into the weekend, your weekend forecast looks fairly quiet for Saturday. Sunday's the day we're going to need to watch out for some snow and some freezing rain again heading into Sunday afternoon and into the evening. So this has been your weather update, brought to you by 1-800-WATER Damage of North Dakota. And we'll be back here again tomorrow to keep you up to date. And you can always check with the Valley News Live weather app and the weather page that we've been showing you throughout the day here as well, to stay up to date on the weather at any time. Have a great day.
There's no such thing as a small disaster. So when you call 1-800-WATER Damage of North Dakota, we come prepared to restore your life back to normal. From burst pipes to unexpected mold discoveries or fire damage, when things couldn't be worse, we come to you with our best. With empathy, local expertise, and a truck full of seriously powerful equipment. 1-800-WATER Damage of North Dakota. Restoring what matters most. 701-670-2022.